Hi everybody, it's Diane. I have two journals to share with you and I will be putting them in my shop. I have the Bluebirds Uncle Ben vintage book and the Bobbsey twins in Tulip Land, which is also vintage but not as old as this one. I don't think I have dates. I might have a date for that one when I get inside. You may remember that before I moved, just before I moved, I got 3 big boxes of Happy Mail from Kimberly. And she said, you know, she knew that I was moving and I wouldn't have room for all of it, so I could keep what I wanted and sell the rest or do whatever I wanted with it. So I had taken out some of it, quite a bit of it, and I put one very, very large box in my parents' storage unit. And I got that out with all the other boxes that I just brought to my house. And I was going through it last night to see what was there and what I might want to keep. And there was a pack of cards that had international boys and girls on the cards. They are so adorable. And when I saw these two, I knew that they had to go in this journal, the Bobbsey twins in Tulip Land. So we're gonna find a place, excuse me, a place for them. So let's go through this book first. They both measure about the same, which is 5 by 7.5, yeah, 5 by 7.5. This one has a 1 3/4 inch spine, and this one has 1.5 because I used the spine that was already on it. It was in decent shape and it has a design on it, so I kept that spine, so it's just a tidge smaller in the spine. So as I said, this one is called the Bobbsey twins in Tulip Land. Look at that beautiful picture. I took the coral colors and chose this fabric to put on the spine. And I used a little blue rickrack because of the blue in there, and I used a coral seam binding. There are 3 signatures. There's the back of it. I think there are, it's either 10 or 11 pages, folded pages in each signature, so it's 40 or 44 sides per signature. This is the original end paper of the book. I put white rickrack there. So I did a few elements on video, and this was one of them, this tuck spot. And I used some Mrs. Cogs images throughout the book, and the digital set is called Vintage Children's Magazine Covers. So that's what this is. And there's a vintage milk ticket and just little bits of paper. I punched a hole here and added this little tag. I stamped a number on the tag. Just used a variety of scrapbook paper. This is just a scrap of scrapbook paper and just a jar tag. I did some stenciling. I did not coffee dye these papers because it's a nice bright color and I kept it that way. But I did do some stenciling to add a little color. I used some children's book pages. This is a really fun page. And then I also used Country at Heart's pages. Didn't have a special name. Let me see if I have it written down here. I do not. I will link it below. Actually, I don't know if I could find it, but I found something similar. So I'll link her shop anyway. There's a vintage envelope here. There's a little vintage butterfly applique there, and a Mrs. Cogs image inside, and 2 of them tucked behind. I used some pretty white lace on the edge of the page, and there's a really pretty ledger page. I'm not sure where I got that from, and it comes in different colors, so you'll see different colors throughout the book. This is the fly leaf from the book. It matches the end paper. And there's another white page that I stamped and stenciled on. Just a small page, and I appliqued a couple of squares of pretty fabrics there. That looks tulipy there. And there's a little fabric tab with a vintage daisy trim piece on it. A vintage birthday card with some pretty daisies. You could, I left it the way it was, but you could glue this at the bottom and then tuck something in there. Here's a little envelope, a brown envelope with some lines that you could write on. And inside is, oh, this envelope tore, is another Mrs. Cogs image. Another children's book page. There's the other side of the greeting card, and again you can glue the bottom and have another pocket there. There's a little fabric flip. It's got some paper doll dress fabric on it, which is really cute. And then here's a belly band, which we also did on a video. It's just a book page from this book that I folded. It's got 3 layers and then glued it, sewed around it, and collaged all these little pieces on there. This is a little Dutch boy that was cut from a different children's book. And then I did these on video also. Kind of made my own little cabinet cards with a Mrs. Cogs image. I used my Big Shot to cut these and emboss. And then here we have another Mrs. Cogs image sewn on as a pocket, and I put on a piece of gathered up seam binding and a button. It's a vintage button, and another Mrs. Cogs image. I glued it to some lined paper. It's cardstock to make it a little bit bigger so it doesn't just fall into there and you can't get it back out. Oh, we must be looking for a place for these little folks. I want them to be seen, so I'm going to put one on that paper clip. Here's the next signature. I love this little image from Mrs. Cogs. A little tag that I stamped on. This one is 2% homogenized milk ticket and a little scrap of paper. Well, it's not a scrap, it was an extra page that I had printed. I had 2 pages left over, so I cut them in half and rounded the edges and used them as little journaling pages. Here's another children's book page. There's a Mrs. Cogs image in there, and 2 here. There's a tab with a daisy on it. This is a gorgeous birthday card. Thought it was interesting. This was given to a man, Uncle Jack, from his nephew. It's pretty feminine, but it is so beautiful. It's embossed. Oh, it's a gorgeous card. And here we have a little printable, I think this is TLC Creates Vintage, envelope with a Mrs. Cogs image in there. Pink ledger paper, that's digital. Pretty children's book page. It's from Ronnie. I think there was a newspaper clipping in here, so that's why it's all brown right there. There's a pretty fabric flip. Pick these threads off. Oh, that one is still attached. And here's the belly band here. This one has a windmill that I cut from a children's book. And here's another image from the other children's book that had the little Dutch boy and this, and there's another belly band with the little Dutch girl on it. This is a Mrs. Cogs image from the same children's magazine cover kit, and it has some gold, get over there, some gold seam binding and a vintage green button. I love this little image. These children aren't Dutch, they're from Normandy, but I love their costumes and I thought they looked really cute in this book. Here's another of the extra pages that I cut in half and then folded. There's another envelope with a Mrs. Cogs image inside and 2 tucked in. There's another little note card. This one does open also, so you can glue it. It's got some kittens and roses in a basket. And we'll tuck this little Dutch boy here. There's a Mrs. Cogs image inside. In the last belly band, there's a little Dutch girl. And then on the back, there's a library pocket. I just glued a piece of scrapbook paper there. It has a library card inside and a Mrs. Cogs image. So I'm just going to call this one Tulip Land in my shop. And then the next one I'll call the Bluebirds. It's from the Bluebirds series, and it's called the Bluebirds Uncle Ben. You may be able to see that it's a little bit bent there. It's not cracked or anything like that. It's just where the cover got bent a little bit, and it's not broken. And there's the spine, and there's a gorgeous vintage back of it. Both of these books, well, this one I had to construct the spine, and it's chipboard and Tyvek and then fabric. And this one, obviously, I used the spine that was there, but I did reinforce it with a piece of chipboard and Tyvek, and then there's fabric on the inside. So here, I put down the end papers on both sides, but then I had the cover upside down, and I put I didn't check the front of it, so I put the library pocket here. And I realized it while the glue was still wet, so I peeled it up, but of course it took paper with it, so I just added another piece of paper there. I'll probably put a label on both of these books to write your name on it. So for the Mrs. Cogs image in this book, I used the Anne of Green Gables set. So there's an actress playing her in a silent movie, and a vintage milk ticket. And I did use coffee dyed paper and tags in this book because the book looks more vintage. This is an image, the one and only image that came from this book, and there's Uncle Ben. I didn't back it with anything. You can write on there if you want to. You can glue it to something or leave it as it is. And again, it has the same elements, just has a different look because it's more vintage looking. So here's the little pocket or envelope there. There's Anne walking the ridgepole of the roof because she's so stubborn. And this is an image of a book cover that says Anne of Green Gables. I used the same papers from Country at Heart. I just divided up the set, and the same ledger papers I used. There's a stamp there of a wildflower. So we have the tabs. These are all cream colored tabs from Vintage Linens, but they all have a vintage daisy on them. They came from a spool of vintage trim. There is a vintage note card that opens. And there's a Mrs. Cogs image. This is where she was set adrift in a boat when she was play acting, and the boat had a leak in it. And she started sinking, and she clung onto the piling there, or the pole, and Gilbert came along and rescued her, to her chagrin. What a great story that is. Pretty fabric flip. there is the belly band, the first belly band, and I cut this little schoolhouse out of a vintage children's book because, like I said, a lot of the story takes place in school, which is where she is here, and also in when she grew up. She was still a teenager, but she became a teacher. And there's the actress that played her in the silent movie. What a pretty picture. There's a lavender seam binding with a button there, and just a little journal tag stuck inside. Here is the next tuck spot, and there is Anne breaking her slate over Gilbert's head because she had hated her red hair and he called her Carrot. Yeah, we do have a date in here. This was on the flyleaf of the book. A Merry Christmas to Thelma from Aunt Ada, Uncle Will, and Genevieve. Christmas 1926. So that's an old book. And just a journaling card. There's another image. I'm not sure if this is from the movie, the silent movie, or what. It's just a bunch of young ladies lolling around. Vintage applique there, and one of the Mrs. Cogs images in here. There's Matthew and Marilla and Anne. I believe this is when he first brought Anne home from the train station, and Marilla was not happy because it was supposed to be a boy they were getting from the orphanage, not a girl, because Matthew needed a boy to help around the farm. Fortunately, they decided to keep her. There's a gorgeous little vintage card, and I believe there's a recipe, a Swedish recipe on the other side. That's just a journaling card, an old graphic 45 one. There's a little child in school. Maybe one of Anne's students. And here's the second belly band. There's an adorable little girl from a children's book there. And there's Anne and Gilbert. Look at those gorgeous ringlets. There's Anne and Matthew. And a journaling card. And this is probably Anne and Gilbert when they became friends, before they got married. Or maybe after. There's a postcard. It's printable postcard, I think. Or either that or it was cut from scrapbook paper. It's not a real postcard. And here we have, that might be Rachel Lynde, because she looks horrified. Or maybe it's Marilla, I don't know. Because Marilla was horrified by Anne sometimes. And here's a picture of the theater that was playing Anne of Green Gables with Mary Miles Minter as the actress. Oops, got glued down there. And inside here is a piece of sheet music with a song from Anne of Green Gables. And there's the actress with all the ringlets. This is a greeting card. I just thought it was so cute with this little family of skunks. And it was a handwritten recital program. Spring recital by Russell Monty, pianist, assisted by Lois Mann, violinist, and Louis something, clarinetist, at 8 o'clock Friday evening, May 20th, 1949. And on the other side of it, it has a list of songs that Russell would be performing on the piano. There's another graphic 45 tag. So here's the program. He played The Scarf Dance, a tango, Waves of the Danube, Evening Star, To a Wild Rose, Polonaise Militaire by Chopin, a Madrigal, and then it says Lois Mann, Duet Overture to Opera Zampa. And there's a little skunk on the back. American Skunk, it says. And the final belly band. This has a little drawing of a corn husk doll, a little piece of vintage trim, which is just so pretty. This flower is punched out from wallpaper. And another movie poster of the Anne of Green Gables movie. And there's just an illustration of Anne and a journaling card. Again, on the back we have a library pocket with a library card tucked in and a journaling card from the movie. So these both will be in my shop, Tulip Land and Bluebirds. Thank you for watching, and I will be back again another day. See you soon. Bye-bye.